Thank you so much, DJ. Thank you so much, DJ Kenny, for the Hollywood for the Halloween tunes. We're gonna get started right now, so we can get out of here before 7. I know TJ wants to keep y'all here till 7, but that's not gonna happen. I want to say good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, it's Wednesday, 5 o'clock. I know it's late, but we wanted to host this event. This is the 5th year that we've done this event. And I'm going to go through some slides like real quick and introduce you to my team, give you a sense of what activities we have planned for you, and what's the expectations of you joining today. And I also would like, for those in the SF Build program, those in the Propel program, I would ask, for one person to speak up and explain what those programs in. I'll get to that part like in the presentation. And if someone could just really sum up what those programs are, I'd greatly appreciate that, because we have a lot of students on here, mostly from San Francisco State, a lot of them in the Bio 881 class, and they could take advantage of programs like SF Build that's at SF State. And they could also take advantage of programs like UCSF Propel. You might not know about it, so we'll have the students talk about it. So my name is Sonny Vernard. I work at UCSF on the SF Build. SF Build is a joint collaboration between San Francisco State and UCSF. And the idea is simple: to help increase the diversity in the biomedical science workforce. So that's why we're here today. And I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll jump into the presentation. All right. So as I said, this is our grad school series. This is part 1. We'll meet today, and then we'll meet next week. So the people who are in the room today are SF Build, Bio 881 from San Francisco State, UCSF Propel, and students in general from San Francisco State. So before I move on from this slide, I wanted one person from SF Build to quickly share like what that program is, what it's about, and when people can expect to apply. So anyone from SF Build. Lorenzo.
So I explain the program, right?
Yeah. Just what is SF Build? Who's eligible to participate in it, and when can people expect to apply?
So from my understanding, SF Build is a program that helps to connect people from like underserved communities to research. And I know SF Build focuses on targeting research related to health disparities, and it's a great opportunity to just get connections and be part of workshops that otherwise would be like difficult to be part of. And you can expect to apply around, I believe it's during the springtime. I think around like April, I think it is, if I remember correctly. It's April, May. I think I need to double check, but I know it's around the springtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the goal of SF Build, help combat health disparities amongst underserved communities, helps people connect to research. It's I don't know if I'm missing anything. Feel free to add on.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you for that. And in addition to that, students get partial tuition. If you're at SF State, partial tuition covered. There's also a stipend. You also get a research mentor either at UCSF or at San Francisco State. So it's a great way to, help prepare yourself to prepare for graduate school. All right, UCSF Propel. Can I have one person from UCSF Propel quickly, share what the program is about and who's eligible to apply for it? Just feel free to turn on your mic. Anyone?
Hi, my name's Adriana. I'm from UCSF Propel. I was actually part of San Francisco State MARC program before this, so it's nice to see everyone. So UCSF Propel is just a post-bac program, kind of like MARC and Build, where the people from underrepresented backgrounds are able to kind of connect with each other. And we also get a second mentor, someone that's not exactly your PI, and then you get matched with someone that could meet like your interests or something similar that you like. This is mainly a 2-year program. Most people are applying probably next year because it's a very new program. But a couple of people, and myself included, we are applying this fall. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And is there a stipend associated with Propel at all?
So most people that are in Propel have the NIH Diversity Supplement.
Okay.
So if you are graduating this year, or 2022, I guess, I highly recommend going to the diversity matchmaking event. That way you can speak with PIs from UCSF if you are interested in doing a post-bac program.
All right. Thank you so much for that summary. My colleague, Dr. Yasmin Carrasco, runs that matchmaking event. And yeah, and she's really well informed on diversity supplements. So if you're graduating, a diversity supplement is a great way to have a job like right after. And I know at least at UCSF, last I spoke to Yasmin, the salaries start around like for a diversity supplement around 50,000 a year. And it also includes insurance benefits. So if you like a salary and insurance, after school, that's a great thing to look into. All right. So next slide. So let me go over today's agenda. I'm going to introduce my team real quick. We're going to have a Q&A because everyone who registered today, as soon as you finish the Qualtrics survey, it should have redirected you to a graduate school video done by our PhD student, Natasha. I just wanted to ask anyone here who saw the video if you had any questions about like what you saw. Then we're going to jump into presentations, how to pick schools to apply to. That's going to be one done by Luke. We'll take a short 10-minute break, a little stretch break, because I'm not about being on Zoom for a very long time. Like right now, my back's starting to hurt already. So we're going to take a little break, a little stretch break. And then following that, we'll continue the presentations. Dianne is going to cover letters of recommendations. And finally, we'll cap off with grad school interviews, which will be done by CJ. And then I'll close out the event. Pretty much the expectations for you, if you're here, whether you are a sophomore or a sophomore through senior, whether you're a graduate, the whole goal of this activity is to help you prepare a draft essay for graduate school. And why I really love this activity is because it's not one of those, assignments. You know how sometimes professors say, hey, pretend, make up this project and submit me a paper or something like that. And then after you're done with the class, you never really do anything with it. This is different. The idea here is for you to actually, if there's a graduate school that you have in mind, like maybe you're interested in Georgetown School of Public Health's PhD program, we want you to actually go see what essay they're requiring and then, write a draft for it. And my advice to you is don't start from scratch. If you're a part of SF Build, you had to write an essay to get into the program. If you're a part of UCSF Propel, you had to write an essay. So I think start there. I respect the fact that a good number, the majority of you who are here are current undergrad, you're in class and things like that. So I know it might be burdensome to have something else, added onto your plate. So that's why I suggest, use an essay that you've already, started working on. And this doesn't have to be perfect. And that's where the PhD students will come in and help support you. And then the last thing I'll close out with is next week, we're going to have a graduate panel. So we're going to have SF State students, SF State alum who are current PhD students at UCSF. And you're free to pick their brains, ask them any questions that you may have. They're all first generation underrepresented students, first in their family to go to college. So they're eager to all work with you and support you. All right, next slide. And then here's my outstanding team. Sonny, as I said, I've got Kenny, who was our DJ today, and then Giancarlo, he'll be joining us next week. And we all work on SF Build. And then here's my other colleague, Dr. Yasmin Carrasco. So if you're interested, if you're graduating, in the spring and you're thinking about diversity supplement, she's the person to speak to, and she can help you, figure out that process. We've got Dianne on here, outstanding PhD student. She's leading this activity. She was eager, she joined us last year and she was eager to keep this activity going. So she'll be presenting later today, but big kudos to her. She did a great job in recruiting PhD students to help review, your draft essays. And then of course we have the man himself, TJ, who, teaches the Bio 881 class at SF State. And appreciate TJ for you bringing your Bio 881 class. And then here are our PhD students who will be leading the presentations. So we have Luke here, who's actually an alum of SF State. Natasha, who, if you filled out the survey, you would have seen her video. I put a link in the chat box, so you can download today's agenda, and in that agenda you'll find her video presentation on how to write a graduate school essay. And then we have CJ, who will close us out today. And then, yeah, I said that already. And then I also, as I said, we've been doing this for a while. I wanted to share, some past attendee outcomes. So these are all SF State alum who have attended. And I think throughout the years, we've had close to 150 students participate in this activity. And over half have, gone on to a graduate program. So first off, I'll start with Alex. She graduated with a degree in math and a minor in physics. She's now I believe a second year PhD student at UCLA right now in the physics and biology program. So she was an SF Bill Scholar as well. We have Luis here. He was an SF Bill Scholar, graduated with a BS in physics. He also got his master's in computer science, all at SF State. And he's a first year PhD student at Stanford in the biophysics program. We have Maria, who graduated with a degree in biology and got her master's in public health from San Francisco State. And she's a first year PhD student at UC Davis. Jasmine will be joining us next week. She biochem, cellular and molecular biology, earned those from SF State. And she was actually at our first grad school event. And now she's a PhD student here at UCSF. And then Luke, he was here during our first session as well, also an alum of SF State. He'll be presenting later. He'll be presenting first. He's a PhD student at UCSF in the biochemistry program, in the tetrad program. And you could ask him more about what that is. And then Austin, I'll stop with Austin. He got both of his degrees from SF State, and now he's a PhD student at Stanford. So a lot of students have done real well, attending. They've taken advantage of this. You may feel like, hey, I'm a sophomore. I'm not ready to kind of think about grad school and things like that. But no, that's not necessarily true. Whenever you're applying to grad school, there's a high chance that you're going to have to write an essay at some point. If you can get help from PhD students now to get that out that way, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. So I would highly encourage you. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's why the PhD students are here to help and support you. And then if you registered for this event, I asked in the survey, what are some of the schools that you all, are thinking potentially of applying to? And these were your responses. So I made a word cloud out of them. And it seems like UCSF, Stanford, and Berkeley are your top choices, followed by I don't know. So it's okay to not know right now. You shouldn't feel bad, about yourself. A good number of people aren't, sure. But anyway, in the interim, you should be, if you can, think of a program like potentially, that you might be interested in, and don't, shoot for the stars, and the PhD students will help, strengthen your application. And then I asked you all a series of questions while you were registering. So one question was, will you be the first person in your family to earn a college degree? And the majority of you said yes. So mostly first generation college students here. And then will you be the first person to earn a graduate degree? And the overwhelming majority of you said yes to that question. So it's very common. And then what is your academic standing? So the majority of people here are juniors and fourth years at SF State, and then followed by people who have earned their bachelor's degree. So that'd be the Propel group. And then a very important question before attending this activity today. How confident did you feel about applying to graduate programs? And the majority of you said that you're worried. So if you're someone that feels worried about applying, just know that you're not alone. I know when I was going through the process, I was very nervous about it because you got to write these essays, you got to think about the GRE and all these things. And if you don't have someone that you can lean on to help you, like with the process, it can be very worrisome. And the majority of you, no one said no, plan on attending graduate school in the future, followed by the maybes. And then what would you like to study at your top school of choice? The majority of you are interested in either a master's degree or a PhD, followed by medicine. And I wanted to stress that even though like this is like PhD focused, someone reached out to me and said, hey, Sonny, I'm just interested in a master's degree. Would this activity like make sense for me to attend? And my answer to that person is yes, it does make sense because the process is similar throughout. For graduate school, you usually have to write an essay. You usually have to do some kind of like standardized tests or something like that. So you can still take advantage. The principles that you're going to be taught today will still apply to like whatever program you're applying to, whether that's a master's in science, master's public health, PhD, or whatever, or applying to medical school. In medical school, you have to write an essay as well. And then I will skip this part. I like icebreakers. I'll stop sharing my screen right now before we jump into the presentations. I just wanted to poll the audience real quick to see your thoughts on this question. So can you all see the poll? Okay, awesome. So the question is, do you have someone close in your life right now that you feel can help assist you when applying to graduate school? And then we'll keep this poll open for like a good 30 seconds. Someone asks, does TJ count? Yeah, TJ counts. I don't know if TJ can help everybody all at once. You know, it's a big class.
And I only have 2 hands.
Okay, we'll keep it. We're almost at a minute and I'll stop the poll. And I will stop the poll. So it looks like a little bit over half of you, like have someone that you feel comfortable, reaching out. Another 45%, you don't have someone, that you feel comfortable reaching out to. And that's why we're doing this event right here. So you can grow your network of allies to help support you as you prepare for graduate school. So that's the whole purpose of this activity. So don't feel nervous or bad if you don't have anyone. You'll get that by the end of this event. So I will stop sharing this poll and then we will, let me jump into real quick the video done by Natasha about graduate school, how to write your graduate school application. I wanted to ask the audience, anyone who saw that video, did you have any questions? Was everything clear? Feel free to turn on your mic or put a question in the chat because whatever question you have, you're not the only person with that question. Okay, thank you. My person in the back thought it was too dark in here. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Brenda. It's very straightforward. It was nice. Yeah, you all could always turn back to that. That video is on the SF Build YouTube chat, YouTube playlist. So whenever you're thinking about applying, you can always go back to that video. Natasha provides very good advice in there. So we're going to jump into the presentations if no one has any questions or comments. Going once, going twice. All right, so everyone's prepared to write their graduate school essay. Okay, all right. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump into the presentations. I have Dianne listed here first. Dianne, would you be okay with going first? All right, yeah. With letters of recommendation. But before you get started, can you quickly share who you are and, why are you interested in, supporting students in this activity?
Cool. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Dianne. I am a third year graduate student. That's the second time I've ever said that. And the first one was earlier today, which is weird. I'm in the biomedical sciences PhD program at UCSF, and I'm interested in studying non-coding DNA. So understanding regions of the DNA that do not code for proteins. And the reason I am here is because 3 years ago, I was one of you guys. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in Washington, and I went to University of Washington. And over there, I was part of the University of Washington Genome Project, which is, I think, very similar to SF Build, is also NIH funded. You get paired with a research mentor. It is targeted for underrepresented minorities in STEM, first generation college students, and students from low socioeconomic backgrounds to increase the diversity of the genomics workforce. So I want to pay it back because I had a lot of grad students who helped me. And the whole point of all of this is that we got to support one another. So that's why I'm here. Yeah. So maybe I will share my screen and let me know if it looks good. I will click here. Okay. And I'll enter presenter view. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So today I'll be talking about asking for letters of recommendation. And just as a note that throughout the presentation, it will be abbreviated as LORs, but I'll keep saying letters of recommendation. My email is listed here, and I can make it accessible in the chat after this presentation. And anyone that is worried that they don't have someone close to that they can talk about graduate school application series, you're welcome to reach out to me. I love talking, as Sonny, I think, has found out, and really happy to chat with anyone that has any questions. Stop me throughout the presentation. If I don't see you, shout. Don't be afraid to unmute yourself. So talking about one another helping each other. So this presentation has been created by previous grad students that presented at this workshop series before, and I have adapted it. But this was, I think, a key aspect to keep, which is like a little brief summary of this presentation, 5 steps to a strong letter of recommendation. And it's an outline for the presentation today. The first thing we'll cover is who to ask. I know that when I was applying to grad school, it was really confusing and intimidating to reach out to people to write me a letter of recommendation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. When is the right time to ask for this letter of recommendation? How do you go about requesting a letter of recommendation? What information do you provide for your letter writers? And when do you follow up? So let's begin. So deciding whom to ask. Most graduate programs ask for 3 letters of recommendations, and you really want to focus on people that can talk about your academic performance, your career aspiration, and who know you as a person. And some examples of people that can talk about all the aspects of the letter of recommendation is course professors, research mentors, or people who you have volunteer with. Something to keep in mind is that you want to focus on people that you have one-on-one relationships. Some people think that when applying to graduate school, they can just ask one professor that they got a 4.0 and A+ in that class, and they can write that letter of recommendation. But really, you want to focus on people that know you personally, that know what are your aspirations, that know what you're doing in your work, like what are your research interests, that get to know you. And this can be hard to ask for 3 people. I know when I was like, oh my gosh, who do I ask for? So something to start doing is you can write a list of 4 to 5 people. Think about you, like I think Sonny mentioned, you're part of SF Build, therefore you have research mentors. So maybe this is someone that you automatically have. A lot of people don't have research experience. And I just wanted to highlight that a lot of graduate programs focus, can you guys see my cursor, Sonny? Yeah, okay, I see a nod. This aspect of research mentor, they really want to know, and I think course professors as well, someone that knows what are your research interests, someone that kind of maybe sees you in the lab and knows that you don't just go around doing what people tell you, but you have initiative. And that's what really the letter of recommendation writers are there to advocate for you. And usually they're colleagues, right? So I think this is one of the aspects of your application that has a lot of weight, because it's someone who has a master's degree, who has a PhD, who has gone through the process, that is advocating for you. So right now, think maybe in the upcoming week, think about 4 to 5 people. If you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore and this seems intimidating, but after this workshop, you're interested in applying to grad school, think about how you're going to develop these relationships. And if you're junior, senior year, think about people that have been through your undergraduate journey that can really speak to your success in graduate school. So picking the right time. The earlier, the better, but this seems very broad in general. So a good guideline, and I think this is perfect as October 27th, is 1 month before the deadline. Most graduate applications are due December 1st or November 29th. So something that would be a good idea is to aim for November 1st. So that's a Monday. So if you're applying this round, I'll get you some tips on how to apply for that letter of recommendation. You have 5 days to think about who can write for you and request that letter of recommendation. So November 1st is always a good deadline. And just as a thought, remember, people are here to advocate for you. They're happy to write it, but they're also busy people. Things happen, so they need time to do it. So this is something to always keep in mind. So how do you go about requesting this letter of recommendation? Email. Email is a great way because you are allowed to write all your thoughts. It gives the letter of recommendation writer time to think about, respond to your requests. And in this email, you can actually request a time to meet, have a Zoom meeting, a phone call, and therefore you can talk one-on-one with your potential letter of recommendation writer about, why do you want to go to grad school? What are your research interests? What programs are you applying to? And they get to know a little bit more about what you will be talking in your personal statement, and they can match that in your letter of recommendation. So email, or, this is just general thought. If you have more of a one-on-one relationship, you can also ask in person. Don't be afraid to do that. Another important thing is provide the right information. So your recommendation, again, they're advocating for you. And in order to do that, they need the correct information from you. And some things that you might want to include after in your emails: what universities are you applying to? What degree are you pursuing? What are you thinking about future career aspirations? Why do you want to attend grad school? This question was also addressed in Natasha's video. So what is the purpose that you want to attend grad school? I know that, for example, for me, it was because I wanted to ask good scientific questions. It's something that I'm still working, but I wanted to know, what is a good problem? How do I go about and pursue it? I wanted to be a scientist, and therefore I needed that. For other people, might be you want to become a professor, you want to become a researcher, and you need this PhD. So think about why you want to attend graduate school and let your letter of recommendation know. Do you have any extracurricular interests? I think that some people think as scientists and people that are interested in research is very one note, but that's not the case. We all have lives, and actually that enriches who you are as an applicant. So this is really important to talk about. A resume or CV, you can provide them with what have you been doing, what courses you're taking, what are you involved with, and they can speak about that in the letter of recommendation. Another thing I really wanted to highlight was awards and honors. I think as a lot of first generation underrepresented students, we tend to be humble and not share our accolades, but this is the time to boast and be like, I got that scholarship, I'm in SF Build, I'm working in the community. Like, this is the time to really go off, and share everything you're doing, because this is what gets you into the next step. And not only is it in paper, but that person said, when I see Adriana here, sorry to call you. Adriana saw this problem and she tackled it, and she got this award and she was nominated for it. This is really the time to share that. And most importantly, tell your story. This is really like what makes you a good applicant is what makes you unique. And that's really important. So I have outlined here. Maybe we'll go a little bit faster in this area because you guys can reference this, and I've outlined in such a way that this will be a template for you and you can make it your own. An easy email that you can send is introduce yourself if you haven't talked to this person maybe in a little bit. So you can tell them where you met, how you know them, explain the applications. What programs are you applying to? Is it a master's program? Where are you applying to? What are your research interests? So I am selfish, so I put my own research interests as an example. And then a key thing that I was told as an applicant was, when you request for a letter of recommendation, ask if they're comfortable writing a strong letter of recommendation, because anyone can write a letter of recommendation, but what makes a key difference is a strong letter of recommendation. So this is, you can copy paste into your email. It is designed for that if you send it. And something that I was given is that you can ask, if you're applying for multiple schools, how to summarize that information and make it very easy for your letter of recommendation writer to go about doing the application. You could create a little table, and I'll have an example with like the information, the deadline, and where do they go and submit it. Yeah, so may I send you a spreadsheet and due dates? You can say that at the end. So providing this detailed information, I applied to 9 graduate schools when I was applying to, thanks to fee waivers. So maybe Jan Luke will talk a little bit about that. I created this little table that I included in my email that included the name of the school that I was applying to. So these are some examples. The due date, actually, if you're interested in any of these universities, I check, and December 1st is the deadline for all of them. Graduate program. What were my research interests at that school? So these are just examples. And then method of submissions. Most letter of recommendations, there will be a link that they go and submit the application, or sometimes they email to someone. So in that field, you could be, okay, I want to go to the University of Washington. The deadline is December 1st. This is the program I'm interested in, the research interest at that school, and how to submit it. And this make it really easy for your writer to just go and be like, okay, I have one general template. Let me change the information for each school. And then here is an example email that I've drafted. Is very similar to the one I send to my letter of recommendation writers. And maybe it has some blanks, and you can edit it, make it your own, depending on who you're applying to. So how are they? Let them know what you're doing. If you're applying this winter, will you be comfortable in writing a strong letter of recommendation for me to include in my applications for biomedical sciences program? I'll be applying to UCSF, UC Berkeley, Stanford, Harvard by this deadline. And then you ask them, will you be comfortable doing this? I can send you all the materials, and I'm also to meet to discuss more about this. And I think that's really important. Something that I would like to mention is that November 1st, maybe you're in your first draft of personal statement and you're like, I don't want to share this writing with anyone. Like, it's really rough. I remember my first draft, it was covered in red by the time it was read by someone else. Don't be afraid to send that to your letter of recommendation writers and just be like, this is my first draft. This is my third draft. Because sometimes something that I noticed was that they'll give you feedback. They'll read it and say like, hey, like you did X and Y and Z in my lab. You could include this in your essay. This is too detailed. So don't be afraid to send drafts to your letter of recommendation writers because it's just providing you more eyes to look at your application. And then the next thing, so ask somebody to read an email before you send it. This could be a friend. I always ask my English major friends to read all my emails because they're way better at all the punctuations and the grammar. And then how to close the email for the response, just a little bit more detail. Always propose to meet, because then you can talk one-on-one with them and make your letter of recommendation stronger. And say thank you in a genuine way. This is really important. They're doing a favor and they're happy to do it, but these are some examples. Just do what feels more genuine to you and who you are as a person. And reminders and post letter of recommendation contacts. So professors, people you're requesting letters of recommendations have a life and are busy. So maybe you won't get a response. Don't be afraid to send an email. You could copy this, just a quick hi, bumping this to your top of your email. Let me know when you're able to meet or something like that. It's something really easy, and sometimes people just miss things, especially if you have Outlook. I have Outlook, and things get messed up all the time. And this is something that you could reminders the week off that is due. You could just be like, hi, the application is due this week. Thank you so much if you've submitted already. If you haven't, this is the deadline and here's the link. You could draft this emails and just schedule it to be sent on a specific date. So that's something really easy to do, because I remember when it was close to the deadlines, I don't want to be emailing people. I was writing on that personal statement like crazy and editing and doing stuff, because I sometimes leave stuff for the last minute. So this is stuff you can do in advance, and it's already ready to be sent. And after the letter, say thank you. They took time to write a 1 page, 2 pages, single space, writing how awesome you are. Just say a thank you note. Handwritten is nice when I know we're in COVID. So also, like, an email is just as great. And let them know what happened. People are really interested and engaged with your future and where do you end up, and they're really genuinely happy about you. So when you get those interviews, because I know you'll get them, and when you get accepted, because I know you'll get accepted, just let them know, like, thank you so much. Like, I ended in Harvard, I ended at Stanford, UCSF, like, just a quick thank you, especially because they already wrote you a letter of recommendation. Guess after you get into grad school, fellowships, scholarships, grants, they already wrote you one. They just have to change the title. So once they know where you are in a year, when you're in grad school and you're applying for a grant, you let them know, like, hey, I'm doing great. Let me know, like, I need a letter of recommendation again. Can you resubmit that? Very easy. And then if you spaced out, because I talk a lot, this is a little summary of things. If you don't remember anything, this is the only things I want you to remember. Decide who to ask. Most schools ask for 3 letters of recommendations. Think of 4 to 5 people. Maybe ask 1 month in advance of that deadline. Send an email with a request to meet and a strong letter of recommendation request. Provide the right information. Talk to them one-on-one. Make a spreadsheet. Provide them with the materials you need. And most important, don't be afraid to send reminders, and thank your writers because they took the time to advocate for you. And that's all I have. I'll stop sharing. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Dianne, can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead. Of course.
Oh, yeah. So I put it in the chat, but like I don't know who read it or whatever. But like one thing to keep in mind is like Dianne's like email template is essentially how like all my email requests for things like my like thesis, like even like requesting PIs to be on my like thesis or qualifying exam committees, when I'm trying to like set up meetings, when I'm trying to like ask for like letters of support for grants, like all of these letters essentially like follow that same general template. So like once you've like written and you have that template, like you're basically going to use it for like everything in graduate school. Like being super thankful and being open to like meeting to like, you know, like elaborate yourself further is essentially how every like graduate school email or like meeting happens. So this is like something to like, you know, like keep as a resource. It'll serve you throughout your grad school career.
I had a question, if I can ask one.
Of course, go right ahead.
Yeah, so kind of expanding on what Luke said about like how like you can have like a letter that can be used for future things and references. So I know in your presentation, you had a slide that had like the graduate schools you're applying to and different research interests. So I was just wondering, so like when you ask someone to write you a letter of rec, are you expecting them to write like let's say like 3 letters of rec, like focused on like those grad schools you're applying to, or is it just one like overall one that can kind of just be used?
So usually you will ask for your letter of recommendation, and they will just change the school and the name. They write a very general about, because let me begin. Most letter of recommendation writers, what they will write about is your success, your likelihood of success in graduate school, and what you have done so far that leads to them knowing that you will succeed in grad school. And that is universal to any school you apply to. So usually they will write a very general, letter, and then at the end, change the program. Like Dianne has broad interest in biomedical sciences. Therefore, UCSF is a great opportunity for her interest in genetics and epigenetics. So that could be an example. Or if you have specific, and if it's a smaller program, they might say, Brandon is really focused on studying X. Therefore, this program is the best for him to succeed, or something like that. I'm sorry for assuming pronouns. My bad. Just where you're most likely to succeed. So that's something that usually is general, and they don't mind doing it. Usually what changes is the school program they're applying to and how they're going to submit it. And then what I did in my first one, I let them know that I was applying to 9 schools and asked, I'm applying to 9 schools. I know this is a lot. Would you be comfortable to submitting each individual application? And they'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I think I saw another hand, but I can't see it. Oh.
Hey, thank you for the information. It has been really helpful. I have a question about who might be a good letter, like a better recommender. Right now, I'm thinking of having probably 2 PIs of my on the same lab, having writing me like letters, but I'm not sure if I should pick up one of them and then somebody else from other experience, and then I don't know, like a professor or somebody else. So I just was wondering, like, if you feel like letters of recommendation from the same lab but 2 different PIs might be good, or do you feel that the more diversified, the better? So yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know exactly how to answer this question. I don't know, Sonny, if you have an input. Usually someone that can speak to your research interest and your ability to do research is great. So I don't see why that would be a problem, but I'll defer to Sonny. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, great. It's whomever really knows you well. It's more about substance versus style. Like if someone doesn't really know you, but you're like, oh, wow, they're this big time PI, they really can't write that much about you. You don't want someone saying, oh, he was great in the lab, and that was it. That really doesn't say much, to the people reading it. And having been on admissions committees myself, you can tell when someone really knows a person. So if you feel comfortable with them both and you've worked with them both, and they could really, and you feel like they can really thoroughly give examples of the work that you've done within the lab, I don't see any problem with that. The importance is what Dianne said, is a person who could write a strong letter of recommendations for you. That's the main thing, someone who has experience, who actually really knows you.
Yeah, and I can add to that too, is in my experience, I'd known a few PIs I worked with and got to know them well. So that helped. But also going back to someone who really knows you, because you want them to attest the type of person you are, and as well as your scientific experience too. So you really want to ideally get PIs, because I've been told that they can talk more about your scientific experience and how you've developed, and how that will help you succeed at the next level. But for instance, I went to UC Santa Cruz in the MARC program. We also have a faculty director of the program, and we met often. So I asked him. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a PI that you worked for. It could be someone that that have been a director or a leadership position for the program you've been in.
Yeah, I also have a question that was sent to me privately, so I won't say who it's from, but it says, if you take a gap year, how can you go about asking for a letter of recommendation? I think this is a really important question. I didn't take a gap year, but I don't know if CJ, Luke, do any of you take a gap year? Okay, so I think, oh, Sonny, do you take a gap year?
Yeah.
Want to talk about that then?
Oh, I worked a few years after undergrad. So what's helpful is it's all about being genuine. So if there's someone that you met that you really have made a connection with, it's really important to kind of stay in touch. Like after you graduate, like maybe you get a job or something like that. You reach out to say, hey, Professor Letty, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this program. You're a great mentor for me. I'm now doing this. Thanks for you. You helped me get on this pathway, and kind of checking in like maybe once a year or twice a year so they remember who you are. Because we have to understand that these are professors and they've seen thousands of students and things like that. So it's really important for you to kind of like stay on the top of mind. So, reach out to them. That is a very great question. I was going to comment on that because that's very common. Like some people may be away from school for 5 years after graduating, and they're like, who do I reach out to? Like, what professor should I reach out to? And it's very good to stay in touch. I just wrote a letter of recommendation today from a student like I used to advise at UC Berkeley School of Public Health. And this student, after she graduated, she stayed in touch with me. And she graduated maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't worked there in such a long time, but she remained in touch like throughout the years, updating me on like her activities and things like that. And now she's applying for a clinical psychology like program and a fellowship. So it was easy for me to write a very thorough like letter of recommendation. So it's all about not being fake. If there's someone that you really genuinely like and make a connection with, and you feel that they've been of help with you, just stay in touch. Just give them an update, like maybe once or twice a year, I'm doing this, and potentially thinking about grad school in the future.
Yeah, and I agree that even if you don't take a gap year and you're in graduate school, keep in contact with those people. I think that's everything that Sonny said still applied. One of the professors who wrote a letter of recommendation for me and was one of my research mentor, once a year I check in and like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, like how's that project going? And sometimes we catch up over Zoom, thanks to Zoom now. So it's true about, I think most people, like just a genuine relationship that you have, you keep in contact with friends and family. Think about it the same way. Also, I just not related. I wanted to say that it's really cool, all the conversation going in the chat and all the connections, the Propel student helping the SFVille students. I love that. Yeah.
Any other questions? I have a few comments, but I would like to, if there's any other questions, because this is real important, the letters of recommendation. And, this applies to whether you're applying for a PhD, MD, master's program, or anything like that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, because you were talking about gap year, so is it okay? So I'm assuming it's okay, like asking a letter of rec from somebody who you worked with, like maybe like 5 years ago or something like that, as long as you've kept like a good relationship, even though you're not doing the same work anymore.
Yes, as long as you feel that they can write you a strong letter, you've worked together, and I really want to emphasize that strong letter part. So when you ask someone, if you see any sense of hesitation, like move on. You better move on and go find like another letter of recommendation. You have no idea. Me being in admissions, sitting in admissions, I've seen people apply to master's programs, and the person writing the letter of recommendation say, hey, this person was lazy and missed out on assignments and things like that. And that's horrible. And I'm sitting here having to like help with the decision process. And this is what their recommender is writing, So it's very important. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's 5 years, you worked with them 10 years ago. If you had a strong relationship, you work together and you feel confident that they could write you a strong letter, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I would say also, talking about the relationships, I forgot to mention that maybe you don't work directly with your professor or principal investigator. Maybe you're working with a graduate student or a postdoctoral fellow. You can always ask for them to do a joint letter with your PI, and that's actually how most letters of recommendations are made. The person who's working one-on-one with you maybe writes the bulk of it, but at the end of the day, the professor's signature is still there. So they're giving the green light. So this is something that if you don't have a one-on-one relationship, focus on, can you write a joint letter together?
Any other questions? We'll take a break shortly. I have one more comment. I'd like to take a question if anyone has one, because we all have these same questions, right? All right. The one comment that I will make, like oh, Bonnie, you wanted to ask something. Go right ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if we did have somebody co-write a letter, like for example, a grad student and a PI, would it be bad if we had more than one letter that was co-written? For example, another letter with a research coordinator from a program co-signing it with like the director of the program?
Does any one of our PhD students, I'm not familiar. Like I've never done that. I've applied to master's programs and usually I just get one person to do it, but I don't know for the PhD programs, you all can talk to that, PhD students.
Yeah, I think for two, I submitted 4 letters of rec, and then 2 were co-written by, one was postdoctoral fellow and a professor, and then the other one was also a postdoctoral fellow and a professor. I think I never see them because sometimes you have to sign that you can't see your letters of recommendations. Sometimes the graduate student will write it or the postdoctoral fellow and only the name of the PI is, so they don't know that it's co-written. And then other times it's they put both of their names. But I think as long as like you have support, the name of the professor is there, I don't see how that would be a problem. Yeah, if anyone else wants to add to that.
No, I don't think so. Brenda, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about when you're applying to a program and they're like asking, oh, you can send in like 3, but there isn't a limit technically. And I've heard people can send in like 4 or 5 letters of rec. So I just kind of wanted to know like what's the norm on that, or does it just, however you're feeling with like sending in letters, like what do you usually do?
I could speak about at least the master's program at Berkeley. For us, I'm telling you, the professors ain't really trying to read extra letters. I'm just keeping it real with you because it's time to read these applications. And after you go through thousands of them, they all kind of like become a blur and stuff like that. So if you feel like, hey, I'm just going to add, like they say 3, I feel like adding 4 or 5. I'm telling you at Berkeley, they're probably not reading it. They'll just take the 3 because it is very time consuming for the admissions committee to like kind of like go through those essays. I think you stay confident. Like if they ask for 3, go with your strongest 3 and just stay with that. Like, but I don't know if others have other thoughts on that for the PhD programs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought about that same thing, and someone told me the same thing as well. It's like you want your 3 strongest writers because you also increase the chances that your extra ones could not be up to the same level as your 3 strongest ones. So that could hurt you too. So yeah, just let's stick with the 3.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And then one last comment that I'll make, because Dianne really stressed this, is giving people advance notice. But sometimes I know, like sometimes like people like me, we wait till the last like second to kind of like, like reach out to folks. I know there's probably some folks on here who are like that. Well, if you do, if you are going to do that, and sometimes, circumstances come up where you have to do it like kind of like last second, it's important. Like sometimes you may have to write your own letter of recommendation. And I've been in the position to do that but you have to be very strategic in how you reach out to people. So for instance, like if it's kind of like coming, close to the wire, someone's mic's on. Okay. If it's, 2 weeks or 3 weeks before or something like that, it's important for you to reach out to the professor, say, hey, Professor Letty, I really appreciate you. I would love for you to write a letter of recommendation for me. I understand this is a time crunch, and I really respect your time. So why don't I do this? I'll write a draft letter of recommendation for you. I'll send it to you for you to review, and you can decide whether you want to sign off on that, because like professors, they're busy people too. So if you're reaching out to them like the last week or like 2 days before, it shows like you may not mean to, but it shows like you really don't care for their time. Like they're just sitting here waiting for you to, you know, send them letters of recommendations to write and things like that. So you don't want to, you know, kind of, you know, give them, you know, that idea. So that's something that you can do. Like, I really respect your time. So what I'll do is I'll write a draft letter and then you can sign off on it. And the other benefit about that is, you know, if you're writing it, you know, good things are being said, right? So, you know, you're getting a strong letter of recommendation and things like that. So, you know, you can always kind of like reach back to them and stuff like that and update the letters, because I've had to do that. There are times where, you know, something may come up and I can't, you know, reach out a month in advance. So, yeah. All right. So we are at 6:05. If you have any questions about the letters of recommendation and stuff like that, you can keep them in the chat and we'll follow up with them later. Dianne will be here and she, you know, will be able to follow up later. So what we'll do now is we'll take a 5-minute break, stretch break. Kenny's going to put on some tunes and then we'll come back at 6:10. How does that sound? All right, cool. Can we give a kudos to Dianne for that great presentation, please? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. All right. See you in 5 minutes.
In school and doing research, and thanks to the MARC program, I was able to pursue research in a more serious way. So for me, like, it's cool seeing everyone here. And if I can sort of like pay it forward and, you know, help other people get into graduate school, like, you know, like that's one of the main reasons why I'm actually pursuing this whole thing, is to help uplift others in science. Cool. And then, yeah, so basically I'm leading the presentation on applying to graduate school and like sort of choosing a graduate school. And then my email contact is listed below, and I typed it in the chat box or whatever. So if anyone wants to send me questions later on, feel free to, and like I'll get back to anyone as soon as possible. If anyone needs like someone to look over their drafts for these things, like I'm more than happy to. So the first thing to ask, and I'm pretty sure many of you guys have asked this for yourselves, but one of the first things to ask is like, is graduate school for you? So graduate school is basically, it's like an advanced program in study for you to study or research in a specific discipline. And then research, as we all know, is the systemic investigation of the unknown. Some of the qualities that I'm sure you guys have shown, not to yourselves, but to your PIs and others, is that you guys are capable of exploring. I'm sure you guys are creative, not just like, you know, creative scientists, but like creative people and creative problem solvers. And I'm sure one of the things that, you know, like makes you guys who you are is that you want to make a unique impact. And primarily you want to do this through research. So even though I'm sure you guys have like, you know, thought about this, like, you know, one of the things is like, you don't want to get too ahead of yourselves. Like graduate school is like a really, really, really big commitment. You know, like I think the average time for completion of graduate school is 5 years. And I've known some PhD students who are like on their 7th or 8th year. So like, it's like graduate school is a bigger commitment than some relationships, and that's just the reality of it. So it's something that you like really need to think through. So then, as I mentioned earlier, the things that like are sort of like driving this whole journey is you guys. It's like your creative energy, your desire to explore, and then your desire to help the world. And the thing is, these like internal qualities are the things that'll like, you know, like help move your science forward. It'll help, you know, like enable you to get like a scientific knowledge base, like enable you to like learn like groundbreaking, you know, like experimental techniques, and to really hone your research expertise. But all in all, like the biggest thing to like really, really consider is to understand your motivations and to like really like know why you're passionate about science. The rest of the stuff will come, you know, like you guys have been dedicated and you guys have been hardworking so far. And you'll just need to be like, do more of that as you, you know, like move towards not just applying to graduate school, but actually being in graduate school. And as Dianne mentioned, in your letters of recommendation, your letter writers need to be able to speak to your motivation. And like the only way that you can sort of like exude your own motivation or like the reasons why you do science is to like really know why you're pursuing science. And if you know like why you're pursuing science and you can sort of like show that to the world, like it'll make you like a really strong applicant. Also, I totally forgot to preface this, but if anyone has any questions, I mean, I can't like see it super easily in the chat, but like feel free to like unmute yourself and like interrupt me if you guys like have any questions, and I'll be more than willing to answer them. But yeah, so back to this. So even though like while you're thinking about going to graduate school or like while you're applying to graduate school, it almost seems like graduate school is like the end all be all of like your academic journey almost. Like remember like graduate school is just like one stop on your long journey of like growing as like a scientist or growing as like, you know, like an academic thinker or whatever. But one of the main reasons you want to go to graduate school is to like acquire skills and like a really strong knowledge base that's hopefully relevant to like your future career options. And the most like direct, like the career options that are like most directly relevant to like, you know, like a PhD are generally like work in academic institutions, whether that be at like through research, working at like a research focused like university or like a medical institute, or it can be within the context of teaching, whether this be, you know, at like various levels of college. This can be in community college, this can be like at the state level, this can be at like the R01 level, but you can become like an instructor. Other ways to apply your graduate degree is to work for the government. You can work for the NIH, the FDA. There's like a ton of government like institutions that do research. You can also work in the pharmaceutical or biotech industry. I mean, the Bay Area is like one of the global hubs for this. So if you apply to a graduate school like nearby, you're going to have those connections. But besides these sort of like very like, I guess like these career options that are like really close to your academic degree, there are also like alternative careers. You can do consulting, you can become like an analyst, like some people work for like venture capital, you can do patent law, you can become like a scientific publisher. Basically a PhD opens up a ton of opportunities. And it doesn't really like limit you in scope like other professional degrees can. And then one of the other things, I didn't really include it as like a full slide, but another option is to do like a dual degree program. Some people decide to do like an MD PhD or a DDS PhD or like a dual degree of like a PharmD with a PhD. So that's also an option. So like there's lots of ways to do graduate school. And one of the important things is basically choosing a school or a program. So the first thing you want to do is like, I personally think like a list of 8 to 15 like schools is like a pretty good range, at least when you're thinking about applying. And you don't necessarily need to apply to all 15 schools, but it's good to have like a running list of these, like a running list that's like relatively large. And then the first thing that sort of comes to mind when you're choosing a graduate program is like, I would say your research interest is probably more important than your academic background. So like, this is why I say your motivation is important, because like it's important to dig deep as to like specifically Like what kind of research do you want to do, or do you have like more of an open mind with the kind of research that you want to do? Like, are you more interested in like specific disciplines? Like when I applied, I was really interested in development, but my interests have changed over time. Are you interested in like basic science, or do you want things that are more like translational? Like these different levels of thinking about your science, or like knowing the science you want to do, is like really important. At the same time, like you need to juggle, like, because sometimes it is more beneficial to apply to like a more like subject specific program. Like my program is like focused on development, or you can apply to like a more like a broader program, like UCSF's Tetrad program or their BMS program, have like are more like umbrella programs where you're not exactly like pigeonholed into like a specific discipline. So then that's like, those are sort of the different levels of thinking about your science that'll enable you to choose like the right program for you. And then while you're like, once you have that idea honed in, you want to find at least 3 potential research advisors who you'd be like sincerely interested in working with. 3 is kind of the number that like most like grad school applications ask you to think about 3 faculty members who you would like, who you would love to work with. So that's sort of the reason why like 3 is the number. But in my opinion, you want more than 3, like, because the reality is the 3 people you might like, if you only pick 3 people, like the nightmare scenario would be like, you're at a school and you're only interested in those 3 people, but they're not taking in students. And then you're kind of like a little bit dead in the water. So pick at least 3, but like the more faculty or research advisors that you're interested in, the better. And then Dianne sort of touched on this, but like make a spreadsheet like with the school that you're interested in, like the application materials, the advisors, and the deadlines. This will help you stay on top of it. And then this will also help like your advisors and your letter writers to stay on top of it. And then one other thing to consider is that like, for example, like UCSF has like both like subject specific programs and like more umbrella programs. One of the realities is that a lot of faculty members like bleed through into like different research programs. So that's another thing to consider, is like whether you want to be in an umbrella program or you want to be in a program like a discipline specific program, and try and see like how faculty members like align with your interests. But like also, like I know there's like a lot of caveats to this, but like also the reality is like your research interests like really change over time. Like when I first came to UCSF, I was like very much interested in like single cell like size and shape changes. Like that was like my jam. But like now I'm in like a more like my research now treads the line closer to like translational basic science rather than like super fundamentally basic stuff. So also like try to give yourself like room for your research interests to grow and change as well. And then so one of the so that's mostly the section on how to choose schools. If questions come up, feel free to ask. And now I'm going to sort of like talk about like the things that are required for your application package. So one thing to note is that like we all need to submit transcripts. You're probably gonna have to submit it to the like the registrar's office, and they charge a fee. The fee is pretty variable. But one thing that I will say is don't let your GPA like prevent you from applying to a school. Like don't self-select yourself out of applying to a school because you think your GPA isn't like that strong. Like I'll be quite candid, like my GPA, like I was not like a 4.0 student. Like when I applied to graduate school, like granted, like my GPA is like significantly better in the second half of my college like experience, but like the first half of my college like transcript is not something I like to look back on. but like, you know, I chose to apply to UCSF even if like I didn't have like the strongest like GPA on earth. And like what I was able to do like through my letters was that like I was able to like talk about like how things changed and like how I'm a stronger student because of my personal academic journey. So don't self-select yourself out. Like the best thing you can do is to spin your story in a way that like A, makes you look unique, and A, shows that like you're really, you know, capable of growing. And as Dianne said, like, you know, like the worst thing someone can say is no to you, but like no one can tell you no if you don't submit an application. And then like I think as of like 2 to 3 years ago, like the GRE, like I'm pretty sure like is optional these days. Most programs you don't need it. Honestly, the GRE like is kind of useless. It doesn't tell anyone anything about your ability to succeed in graduate school. So like, and like honestly, I have friends that didn't take the GRE and like they've gotten into great programs. So like, you don't need to do the GRE. Like it's a waste of time and money. And most programs don't ask for it. So that's kind of nice. I think there are some questions. Okay, cool. Oh, that's the other thing too about the whole GPA thing. Like a lot of schools these days like consider like distance traveled. So what that sort of means is like a lot of committees like try to look at you like as a holistic person rather than like looking at you as like a checklist of things. So, you know, like your capacity for growth, you know, like your personal journey or your personal interest and motivation in doing science or pursuing like a graduate degree, like those things are like super, super important. And like, you know, like GPA is only like one factor. So, you know, like really just like honestly sell yourself. Oh, okay, cool. I'll need to end soon. Okay, so basically one of the things that we sort of touched on is like applying is super expensive. Like, and like, as I mentioned earlier, you want to apply as many schools as possible. But the fact that like you guys are in like the build program like actually enables you to get fee waivers for applications. And then on top of that too, like a lot of research conferences provide fee waivers for applications. Like when I went to SACNAS, like I think I like half of my applications were free just by going to SACNAS, and then the other half was like free because of like being a MARC student, like a MARC scholar. So honestly, like get those fee waivers so you can apply to as many schools. And a lot of your application materials are kind of recycled between schools. So like applying to one more school isn't a lot more effort than applying to like, you know, like 5-6 schools already. And then I don't know if you guys know this, but PhD students, like your tuition and stipend is paid for. Like as of now, I think I make about 42,000 like a year. Sadly, that doesn't include like taxes like getting removed. But yeah, so you're paid to do research, your tuition is covered. Normally your first year or two is covered by like an NIH training grant. And then after that, you're going to find your own funding or your PIs are going to cover for you. Honestly, you guys are all going to go into great institutions. So like if it's hard to find your own funding, your PIs have your back. And then like for the last point, like there are some like student fellowships that you can apply to now that carry over into graduate school, namely the NSF's GRFP. You can apply as like you can apply the year before you apply to graduate school, or you can apply as a first year. That's one way to basically get funded. And one thing to also note is that like your stipend is sort of like adjusted to the cost of living. Like our stipend at UCSF is higher than I believe a school like University of Michigan, where the cost of living is lower, but the scaling isn't perfect. Like I know some graduate students who have actually like who went to a grad school like in a smaller town, and they were able to like save up for like a house, like the down payment on a house. But you can't really do that on your UCSF stipend, because SF housing's a little rough. So your mileage may vary on the scaling of your stipend. The other super important document, and it kind of is like your letter of recommendation to yourself, is the statement of purpose. As I mentioned earlier, like your motivations, your goals and intentions are like 100%. Like it's the thing that'll like, besides like your letter of recommendation, that'll like really propel you to where you want and need to be. So like really clarify that with yourself and like be able to articulate that in like a page to 2 pages. Other things are like you should be able to like articulate your research interests. So besides like your goals and intentions are like why you want to go to grad school, but your research interests sort of like hone into like why you pick a specific program. And then like if you can state your research interest, it sort of highlights, like it's one of the first way to highlight how you think about your science, which is kind of what the grad programs are interested in. So that's like one thing to like keep in mind. And then like as this thing says, like sell yourself, but also like make it a narrative. Like you don't want to just like list your CV in paragraph form, because that's like super boring, and I'm pretty sure academic like or the acceptance committees don't want to read a paragraph form of your CV. Like, tell a story, like use this as an opportunity to humanize your application, and to like like highlight what makes you you, because like like they want to, like when you come into graduate school, like at least the culture of UCSF, like like the acceptance committees are taking you in not just as a trainee but as a colleague. So you need to highlight why, like like you can be the colleague of like these like world-renowned PIs. And then the last thing to note with like the statement of purpose is like start early and like send it to as many people and get as much feedback as possible. Like there's a lot to say in a statement of purpose, and you're not given that much room. So like you have to be really concise with what you want to say. And the only way you can kind of get there is like by getting like a bunch of feedback. And then like the CV, I think you guys for the most part know what a CV is, but it's like, like it's your GPA and like, like the school you went to, your like the thing to highlight though are like your honors, your fellowships, awards, and grants. Even highlight like the like also you want to like highlight like your research experience. One thing to note, don't let your previous research experience like self-select you out of applying to a program. Like for me, like I studied yeast vacuoles as an undergrad, yet like which doesn't have anything to do with development, but I still got into a development program. So don't let your previous research experience limit what you can do moving forward. And then other things you want to highlight are like your teaching experiences, like your leadership and outreach. All of this stuff really makes you super unique. Like I've talked to some of my colleagues who've done like almost no outreach. So, like just doing outreach like makes you stand out amongst the crowd. And then other things to highlight are your publications and your presentations. You want to show that you're a productive scientist and that you know how to communicate your science. Like you don't need to be perfect, but that stuff highlights that you're like at a starting point and that you're ready to do graduate school. So in closing, like honestly, like there isn't such thing as a stereotypical scientist. Like so that gives you permission to sell yourself. Sell how unique you are, sell how unique your journey is, basically sell yourself and show how awesome you are. And then research the grad programs that you're into or that interest you. I touched on a couple things earlier, but some things to also think about is like think about like the city. Like there's a bunch of cool science stuff to think about when you're applying to a program, but just remember you're not going to live in your lab. You're going to have to go out into the city that your university is at. So like think about the culture of the city, think about the demographics, even think about like the institutional like attitude. Like I personally think UCSF, like despite being like this elite university, you know, can be relaxed in some ways. Like I don't call my PI doctor, whatever. A lot of PIs, you know, are easily on a first name basis, and it's like super collaborative, and people treat you, even though you're a grad student, as a colleague. So like those are some things to sort of feel out, is like the institutional environment. Like if you want a stuffy academic school, you know, like that's a preference. So like there are like environmental things to think about while you're applying that you might not be able to fully address until you're interviewing. And then compile all your stuff. It keeps you on track. It keeps your letter writers on track, keeps everyone on track. And then, yeah, this one I touched on. But yeah, all in all, like you want to sell yourself, you want to sell your narrative, you want to sell your story. You know, you want to put your best foot forward. And the only way you can really do this is like by knowing why you want to do graduate school, and like why you want to do research, and like, you know, shape your story to highlight the why of all of this. And that's the end of my stuff. So if anyone has any questions, like my email's in the chat. Oh wow, someone's also in the Chan lab. I'm sorry, that's really exciting. But yeah, that's my undergrad lab. Chan lab is where it's at. And the people in the Chan lab, we go to cool institutions. So Mark's a great letter writer. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm like super down to answer questions. I'm down to look over people's drafts. I'm here for you. Anything I can do to help you, just reach out.
All right, thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you. If you have questions for Luke, please leave them in the chat. We're running a little short on time, so we're going to transition over to CJ, who will introduce himself and lead a presentation on graduate school interviews. And we'll be concluding with that. Take it away, CJ. Let us know a little bit about you and why you're motivated to support these students.
Yeah, so I'm originally from San Jose, which is not too far from here. And then I went to high school in San Jose. Then I went to UC Santa Cruz for my bachelor's in biochemistry and molecular biology. And then after graduating there, I decided to apply to grad school. And while I was at Santa Cruz, I was in the STEM Diversity MARC program there. And, you know, that program has been incredibly helpful for a lot of things. I was also part of the SOCNAS chapter there as the president of the chapter and treasurer. And so I think what really brought me to this is the fact that I love, you know, giving back to my community, really guiding students like you to through this application process, because I know myself it was a very rough time doing all this when you know, you're the first generation student and you don't really know what to do. So, you know, developing this type of community is very important to, you know, pick everyone's brain, see what their experiences were, and to really learn how they did it. Because if you want to follow a similar path, there's no better way than learning from the experience of others. And so, like, also reiterate, my email's there. Just please let me know if you need any help or if you want to do something. So I'll be covering the interview portion. And so let me bring this up. Okay, and you all can see.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, we're good. So yeah, this is a slide deck that someone else has made, but I'll be contributing to it through my own experience. And I'm sure Luke and Dianne can also do the same as well. And so in general, you'll be notified in late December, but mostly in January. Some schools do it differently. So there's like a timeline and they try and do it right away so that you can you have enough time to book your plane tickets. Some programs will do it for you, which is really nice, but some also have you do it. And they will also, depending on the program, they will pay for it themselves when they do it, or they'll reimburse you. So you kind of have to put up the money up front and then they'll pay you back once interviews are over. And so, depending on where you get interviews at, which I know everyone will, because like y'all are great, you're all here, you're doing this, and this is what you need to do. And so interview is 2 to 4 days. It'll be 1 week for one interview program, and so it's hard. So one thing is that sometimes interview weeks will be the same week, and depending on what schools you apply to. So sometimes schools have a different interview week. They have 2 different ones. And if that's the case, make sure to contact the program coordinator, director, to let them know that there is a conflict, and maybe you can come at a later date, because I know people who've done this. And so they can try and work things out, especially because if once you get an interview, they already seen your application, they like you, they know you're a good person, they just want to make sure that you are true to what you say in your application and get a feel for how you are as a person, as well as for you to see the program and see if you guys are a good fit. And so let me move this, can't see. Okay, so, and each school notifies applicants differently. Some schools do it right away. Like for UCSF, I got a call the week after, which surprised me. I was in lab and I was like, wait, was this quick? And so that was exciting. But some schools also wait until a certain time to do it, to let everyone know at the same time. And there's a lot of different things. So don't worry if you don't get a interview right away, or if you don't hear back about the interview right away, because they take time. Some people will decline their interviews and they'll open up more spots. So it's I like to think, just do the best you can from the interview and kind of forget about it for a little bit. Don't stress out, because you did your best and it's out of your hands. So you just want to keep a positive mindset. And so there is a deadline for all the schools to let them know if you're going to accept, and that's April 15th. So usually if you get your top school, you would probably accept it right away, so you don't have to worry about that. And so they give you plenty of time to think it over. And when you are considering which schools to attend, you want to talk to people that you talk to about your application, your PIs, your friends, people in your program, to really, think of the pros and cons. And that's one thing, is to make a pros and cons list of each school about what you found out during your interviews, and seeing, I really like this aspect, it was a friendly environment, or it was too intense, or I like the research and stuff like that. So you really want to critically think about your time there and really reflect on what you liked and what you didn't like from that interview. Because like I said, it's not only for them to get to know you, it's for you to get to know the program, the environment, and which is very important, because science is amazing. We all love it, but you can only do your best science in the best environment, and that's important. And so let's see, I already mentioned, so all expenses are paid, which is very nice. But the thing is, what I mentioned, some pay you after. If that's the case, I would recommend using a credit card if you have one, or talk to your program directors to see if you can work something out. And I'm sure, you can find a way to do this, or you can talk to your home institution's program director as well. And so let's see. And okay, so for the whole interview process, it's over several days, and it's not, so for UCSF, you come in on a Wednesday, students take you out to dinner. I'm assuming these will all be in person. I'm not sure about the Zoom interviews, so I'm gonna go off my experience, but most of the things still hold true, is that when you first get there, students will welcome you up, they'll pick you up. So I had a Cornell interview, they picked me up from the airport, they showed us the hotel, they gave us dinner, and we just talked about, their research, their experience at the school, a little bit about themselves, what led them to graduate school. And so then they get you back pretty early to the hotel to make sure you have a good night's rest for your interviews the next day. And so what it is combination is, it's a lot of poster sessions to get to become familiar with the research being done at the school, and a lot of social events to get to know the faculty, the students, and everyone there, to really, gauge how everyone is as a whole, and as well as talk to everyone's to see how their experiences were. And they also include tours of campus housing, because personally, for me, I went into campus housing immediately after getting here, because I knew finding housing SF from somewhere else is rather difficult. So it just made it a little easier. So they want to show you, they're all trying to show off, how great their school is. So just be aware of that. And so interviews with faculty members. So majority of your time there will be having back-to-back interviews with faculty. You'll get breaks in between, and you'll also be walking around the campus to different offices. So that's really nice to, get to see what it's like to be a student there. And so you also get interview with the student. It depends on the program. So UCSF, for the Tetrad program, we have one student interview for each person. That way they can, take a break. We kind of use it as a way for them for the interviewees to just relax and just, talk about whatever they want to talk about. If they want to learn from our experience, or if they just want to hear about our stories and stuff like that. And we just also want to hear from them, what led them to graduate school. We try not to, be too much into the science and intense, because you're going to be doing that all day. So also too is, after the interviews are over, most of the time you also go to another dinner that's hosted by faculty members. And so here for the Tetrad program, after one of the interview days, we had a group dinner with other interviewees and faculty, which is very nice, because you get to talk to other faculty, have a nice dinner, have some drinks, and get to know how they are as a person and learn more about the research. So the big thing is, you're going to learn more about the research. They're going to ask you about your research, and this is what I'll cover right now. And so, I thought that was the next slide. So here is, I really want to emphasize, be the best version of yourself, but be comfortable with who you are. Present your true self. Don't try and change who you are, because you want a program that fits you, who you are as a person, and you want to find that program. And so most schools, depending on where you go, they just business casual. UCSF, they didn't even care. They just said, show up with what you're wearing for Tetrad. But for like Cornell, we actually had, we had to wear actual business casuals. Same with University of Washington. So be careful, make sure to double check what the attire is for the interview. Don't speak negatively about other institutions, because that kind of reflects on how you view other places and how you talk about them when they're not there. So just be positive. I really want to emphasize, show your enthusiasm for your interview, because they want people who want to go there, because there's a bunch of people that are interviewing. They'll talk about their science. Everyone has their own unique science. You want to be as enthusiastic as possible about your science, and for their school, because they want someone that they'll see in the hallways every day, like, hey, how's your science going? And they want someone to talk to about science, and also be happy to be there. And have fun, but don't overdo it, because there have been stories of people having too much fun and kind of ruining their whole interview. So tread lightly, but still make it a positive experience. And really important too is ask as many questions as you can. And so I'll get to that with the actual interviews. So when you actually have the interviews, someone will take you hopefully to the PI's office. PI will sit you down, and they'll ask, like, they'll probably have read your application beforehand. I have some, depending on the person, that they didn't, and they had it right in front of them. So that's another thing you can notice as well. But yeah, so they know, what you wrote in your research portion, as well as your personal statement. And so they will ask mainly about your research. They'll first ask, explain your research. And so what you want to do, ideally, the best way to do this is to practice mock interviews. And so I am more than willing to help people with a mock interview as well. And, that is the best way, because you get to see, have different questions come at you the way a PI would. And so this could let you also practice explaining your research in a short period of time, and not in great detail, because they've read the detail that you put in your application. But you also want to have like an elevator pitch. You want to explain it in easy terms so that someone outside of your field can understand. And so also they want to know not about the techniques, but how you use them to answer your question. Why was your question important? And like, what did you do next? How did you overcome these challenges? You talked to your PI about this, you saw that it didn't work, or you had an idea and you discussed this. These are the things you want to show, that you have the motivation for your project, and that you really, did your best to be engaged. And so another thing is, they wanted to see, why did you apply to that school? What brought you here? So you want to, have things ready with each school while you apply. This school has this support system that I really love, because I know this will help me progress as a scientist and as an individual in my career. And so that's something that you would want to, look up beforehand. So like Tetrad, we have a bunch of programs here that can help. We have IMSD, and we have a great professional development department as well. So stuff like that is really key, because that shows that you looked into the program, you did your homework on them, and you know that these are the things that can help you. And so another thing is your career goals is, they're gonna ask, like, what do you want to do after graduate school? How do you plan on utilizing your time in graduate school? And typically, you want to say, like me and myself, I want to become a professor at a minority serving institution, and also, help direct a undergraduate research program. So something like that, or you want to go into science policy, because that way it shows that you have thought about what you're actually going to do after your PhD. And you don't have to have a concrete answer, because, a lot of people change during graduate school, and life is fluid. You're going to get interested in something else might change it. They just want to see that, you've been thinking about it, and that you're looking ahead towards the future. And so going back to educational goals, this goes back to stuff about the program, the specific program, PIs in the program that you're interested in doing research with. The PI you're talking with specifically, why. You could say, I'm interested in your research because it's related to my undergrad research, or I'm looking to get into a different field. And so you really want to show that you did your homework, and that you want to pursue science at a higher level and become a better scientist. Because all graduate school is you're learning how to design experiments, how to think about questions, how to approach them and stuff like that. And also, overcome these failures you have in lab. And so this is all important, and they want to hear about all this, that your experience that you have has really showed you that this is what science is all about, and that you're ready to pursue a PhD. And so the last one is also very important. I have gotten mixed advice, but I think from my experience is, you don't have to go in depth into the PI you're interviewing with about their research. You can, like for UCSF, we didn't even give out who you're interviewing with, because they don't want students to stress about wanting to, needing to know about their science and needing to read up the night before to get ahead, because, all the science is about is talking casually about your science. Because you're going to go to conferences, meet other scientists who haven't even read their research, and just talk about it. And that's how it usually is. And so if you really want to, you can read an abstract, a few abstracts, or just read what they have on their website. That's all you need to do, because during the interview, you can ask questions about their research. They will also describe it, and they can, be describing it. You can be like, oh, why did you think to do this? Or was this interesting? Or why didn't you do this? Something like that. You want to show that you're engaged, you're interested, and you're enthusiastic about your time. And so don't overthink it. Like I said, be your true self. Don't be someone different, because you want them to accept the person you are. You don't want to change yourself to fit into their program, because you're not going to have a fun time. And I'm sure people have done that and they've had a good time, but you want to enjoy your time there, because it's a long time. So you want to make sure that you've talked to other graduate students. Importantly, that's the most important thing, is talking to other graduate students, because they have lived through the experience there. They can tell you the upsides, the downsides, why they picked that program, why they didn't pick other programs, and why specifically they chose the lab they're in, and stuff like that. And wear comfy shoes. It's a lot of walking. Also be prepared if you go to the East Coast. There will be snow. It was at Cornell. It was very cold. It was the first time I've ever been in a snowstorm. It was an experience. And also send a thank you note to your student hosts, because also keep in touch with them, because they will be very helpful during your time of deciding which graduate schools you want to go to. There you're in, you can ask them questions like, hey, I'm thinking about this, or what do you think about this? And so it's really important. And this whole comes back to making connections is really important as well. You know, you want to learn from the experiences of others who've been through it, and it'll make your life so much easier. And it also gives you so many unique perspectives. And so, and also, yep, I think I covered that. Don't hesitate to follow up. Trying to rush through this, Sonny. Hoping I'm covering everything, but you know, I think really key points: be yourself, practice mock interviews, talk to your family about your science if you can. My family, first gen, they don't know what I'm doing, but you know, I still try anyways, because you know, all levels of science communication is very important. Talk to other people in your lab about your science, you know, have mock interviews with them, people in your program, or just, you know, someone who's willing to do it, because the more practice, the more comfortable you will be talking about your science, talking about your career aspirations and everything that you need to do. And like I said, be yourself. And I'll let anyone else chime in if they have any other advice. And also too, let me know if you need any help, more than willing to.
Thank you. No, thank you so much, like, for that outstanding presentation. This was very helpful and illuminating. We will be sharing everyone's contact information in all these slides, so don't worry about that. You'll receive them by no later than tomorrow. We also recorded these sessions, so these videos will be up, so you can always come back and take a look, you know, at this information. So I just want to say, can we give a round of applause to our PhD students who continue to volunteer to help support this program? Can we do that? All right, thank you so much, CJ. Really appreciate it. We're about to close out. TJ, you got your wish. We got close to 7. You know, it's about to be 7 o'clock. Y'all can blame TJ for that. And then, like, the last thing I'll say is I'll share my screen for the last slide. The next steps, the next steps for you all is to send me by Friday. Hold on, let me get this up. Send me a draft graduate school essay to my email. I'm the dude sending out all the emails, so you should have my email. And we want this to be real. So if you take a look at the agenda that I sent, like within the chat, there's a little template at the very last page. So what's going to happen is I'm going to pair you with a PhD student, and the PhD student is going to read through your draft essay. And as I mentioned before, don't start from scratch. If you apply to SF Build, if you apply to Propel and things like that, there are essays that are already written, you know? So start there and really find a program that you really want to work on so you can get this done now. So it's one less thing to worry about when applying to grad school. And then we'll all come back here next week. We have an outstanding graduate school panel for SF State students who are PhD students at UCSF. I know some of you are interested in medical school. I may be able to get one person who's a medical school person to chime in since there's interest in that area. And then the rest of the session is just giving you feedback on your essays. And this has been helpful to many students and has led to a lot of folks getting into good graduate programs, like Luke, who was here doing our first session. So I want to say thank you all for joining us tonight, and enjoy the rest of your week. Oh, everyone from SEO should have a statement of purpose as well. So yeah, start with that. All right, take care, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Y'all have a great night now.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Have a great night. Have a great night. Great information, you all. Great information. I hope you all digested this and took it in.
Thank you.
Thank you.